Trump's threats against Iran have escalated tensions. What message is he trying to send at this point, sir?
The same message that he tried to send with dealing with Canada, with Mexico, with all of the Latin American countries, and also with dealing with the Middle East conflict.
Mexico, Canada, and China are different than Iran. They're not on the same. They're not on the same table, sir.
For sure, but what I'm trying to say, to put pressure on their and his enemies, if you can say that, and then making sure that they will adapt or will fear to make sure fear another potential sanctions, or fear potential sanction or isolation from the international community, as he did with Iran in first
term. Sir, do you think? Sorry to interrupt you, sir, but do you think that using the same strategy in tackling every problem or every topic makes you successful, or makes you reach your goal?
It's a good question, but this is what he thinks that will work. But again, it worked with different countries, but I don't think it will necessarily work with Iran, for example, because Iran is a rogue state by the definition of the State Department and by the American-U.S. foreign policy. And of course, putting pressure in your enemy, because again, Canada and Mexico is not your enemy, but Iran could be your enemy. And like putting that same sanction or using the same foreign policy towards your enemy, it does not necessarily mean that they will adapt or they will take it or they will work by this or abide by this. So what I'm trying to say, he's using the same tone to deal with Iran or to contain Iran, but I think he's not serious.
The same strategy, sir.
Yeah, and he's not using the. I don't think he's honest and is willing to use the military power to contain Iran, because he campaigned on ending all wars in the Middle East and also in the Russia-Ukraine war. And I don't think he's willing to open a new war, direct confrontation with Iran, because again, he knows that Iran has some military capabilities and that could be another big issue in the Middle East. But what he's trying to do is putting maximum pressure on Iran, asking Iran to just abide by them, and then making sure that Iran will behave in a good way, that to align with the U.S. foreign policy. That's what he's trying to do, what he's hoping for. But will Iran do that? I'm not sure. Will Iran will be deterred by using
we'll wait and see, sir, what Iran is going to respond and do. Sir, the latest sanctions target Iran's oil exports. How much economic pressure can Iran withstand, sir?
Iran will stand too much huge pressure, economic pressure and economic sanctions again under the Trump administration in the first term, and I think Iran can handle that in the second term. But again, I think the Iranian president and the American president are willing to have some or start a new page of the relationship again, as the Iranian president said that maybe we can have a good relationship with our American brothers. He said that 6 or 8 months before the election. So by saying this, such an announcement from the Iranian president, and maybe using the same language or the same tone, the same strategy from the American president, that could be a meaning or an indicator that the US maybe are seeking to have a good relationship with Iran, or at least peaceful relationship with Iran. But they are trying to do it from using the maximum power or the maximum pressure, because again, the United States is the biggest power in the international system right now, and the Trump is trying to use this strength to achieve peace through strength. This is his foreign policy strategy. So I think he's not really want to start a new confrontation with Iran, but again, by playing the old game of imposing sanctions and putting isolation in Iran, that could put Iran under pressure, and maybe could push Iran towards to deal peacefully with the American interest in the region, and it could be also to stop the supply chain with their militias in the Middle East, as we have seen. Also, of course, Iran has been weakened in Syria and Lebanon, and maybe there's no tie right now between Iran and Hamas. So that could be a good indicator for the American administration to build on that, and then maybe have a good or better relationship with Iran.
Okay, sir. Trump's latest statement insists he doesn't want war and prefers a peace deal despite his latest escalations of sanctions. How should we, sir, explain this?
Yeah, again, what he says that, or what he thinks that by using sanctions and using like putting tariffs in different countries will make them do what he wants. As again, he achieved that in Canada and Mexico and different countries, but it doesn't mean that he can do that with China, for example, with Iran, for example, because again, these countries are like they're like obvious enemies for the United States, and doesn't mean that putting this pressure or using the same strategy will help them to like work with you or abide by your requirements. But again, using this strategy, I feel like it's like away from having a strategic U.S. foreign policy towards the Middle East. Again, what we were struggling under the Biden administration, that the lack of a strategic foreign policy towards the Middle East, he was like dealing with the Middle East day by day. And I feel like right now it's different, or a shift from the Biden administration to having like this huge language or using sanctions towards Iran and be so firm with all of the foreign policy strategy. But again, we are not talking about having foreign policy strategy. And I think this will not lead us to anything good or anything better than what we have seen under the Biden administration.
Okay,
Again,
sir, because I'm running out of time. Iran insists its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes. How credible is this claim under current developments, sir, from your own perspective, of course, and your take?
For sure, Iran has been saying that for years, and of course, the United States does not believe that. And between the Iranian perspective and the United States perspective, there is a huge misunderstanding between the two countries. And what we're trying to say here, or what we're trying to see in the future, that the United States want to make sure that the Iranian nuclear program is for like peaceful purposes, and then we can make sure that that the United States or the West can contain Iran for not having the nuclear bomb or nuclear weapons, or not to develop that. So what I think this is the main purpose or the main intention by the Trump administration by putting the sanctions, and while between or behind closed door, that he wants to have like some sort of confirmation from the Iranian counterparts to make sure that the Iran is trying to behave as a good state and try to have a nuclear program for peaceful purposes, not only for like to develop nuclear weapons. As long as we have this or receive this confirmation from the Iranian counterparts, I think the relationship between these two countries will be in a different place.